Well, okay, I'm a little better now. Cat was really nice to me, and then here's the thing: this walker, and I don't know, because there's days what I do is I normally put a towel on it, and then like yesterday I took a shower, and the towel I put on there is the one I use to dry myself, and I've done it because I got busted a couple times where I went in, I got in the shower, and I forgot to grab a towel. So the towel served two purposes. Like when I was still wearing the cast, it was a cushion for when I had to put my knee on the walker to give myself a little more balance, and I could roll around a little bit on it. And it also, when I'm in my underwear and shorts, it gives me something to put my legs on, because every now and then, it ain't every time, but every now and then when I put my legs up on this walker, the plastic irritates them. And I don't know what that's about. I literally don't understand that. And, well, I haven't had one on it since I took the shower yesterday. So, it is what it is. Well, and it might have a thing to do with weather, but I'm pretty sure I was wearing shorts yesterday, but sometimes I put like sweatpants, or I'm gonna call them sweatpants. It's their Badger or their Packer colors, but they're green and gold. And I sometimes put those on, and they're real thin. They're good for summer. And then I have like I have sweatpants I can put on in the winter that are a little thicker. They're a little better. And but I don't think I had those, because if I got pants on or sweatpants or whatever, I can understand why it might not be irritating my legs to put them up on here, because I've got cloth over them. But I think I had bare legs yesterday, and it really was not bothering me at all. And then today it was kind of there's like no rash. They weren't itching, but today it was just bothering them. And so I'm like, well, I'm gonna get a towel. I can't clean it. It's got to wait for my brother, but uh, there was like a little diarrhea poop on the floor in the bathroom. And I think it now, I didn't see it in there earlier, but I don't, yeah, because I went into the bathroom and I didn't see it there. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't me, because I went into the bathroom and it, it felt like I had to poop, felt like I had to pee. I got in there and just let off a little bit of gas, and I'm a cured man. But I don't think it was me, for two reasons. One, it wasn't big enough, and with what happened to my stomach when I was working for GM, it's too firm. Uh, I've got, it ain't quite diarrhea anymore, and it's definitely not what I was dealing with when whatever was going on down there. But I really rarely, if ever, have anything approaching like anything solid. Uh, I don't want to get into it. I really don't like I said, I didn't. If I have another episode, I'm just gonna not stream anymore today. That I kind of fucking lost it, and I don't want to do that. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna finish what I was talking about, but as soon as it's over, so just bear with me a little bit. But what I'm gonna talk about coming up is what's going on in the Senate. I'm gonna do. I can't do everything. So if this is interesting for you, you can look at the reporting that they're doing on News Nation. They have a shitload of clips on YouTube, and I think they're really good. But Ross Coulthart and I think it's Bryce Zabel, they're the two guys from the Need to Know podcast. Go check out their YouTube channel. Need to Know, Coulthart. That should bring it up if you do a Google search. But they got two videos. One of them is from a week or two ago, I think, might be a little longer. One from a couple weeks ago. where they are talking about the amendment that Gillibrand and Rubio were offering, and he worded it this way, that it was locked. It was locked. And then the other thing is the one that Chuck Schumer, and I want to focus on that one. I'll talk about the other one or compare it a little bit to the one. I'll talk about it a little bit, but most of the focus is going to be on the one that Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is putting forward. And here's the thing, cats. You can come sit with me. I got you treats. You were very nice to me when I was having my meltdown, so you can come sit on me with, and I got you treats. The other thing is, the other cat did not come when I fed them lunch, and she might have been getting my attention. And here's the thing: it's not completely selfless. She usually, when he's done, as soon as he eats his food and leaves, if it's something she likes, she will go eat his before she eats her own. And I used to get on her about it, but he don't seem to care. But she'll go over there, she'll still have food in her dish, and they're getting the same thing. What's in his dish is what's in her dish. She will go over and eat it before she even finishes his. Well, she's done this before, because there's times for lunch and supper where he just doesn't come out. And if he isn't going to eat it, I don't open it. It's a waste of food. Well, she would come, and it took me a while to realize it, but she would come and bug me. That is such a good girl. I swear to God, when I get done with this stream, I'm going to clean your litter box. That is so good. She's finally using the potty. That is so good. You are such a good girl. Yes, you are. She's really being a good girl. She doesn't like there's mornings, and nobody's mad at her. There's been mornings where she gets sick, and then I have to let my brother know, so he knows that, hey, she might be getting sick today. And she looks, like me even talking about it now, she gets fucking bolted out of here. You can tell by the look on her face, she doesn't like, even though she's not, because she feels bad about it. Now, when she's pooping somewhere or peeing somewhere she doesn't belong to, she doesn't always feel that bad about it. But when she's getting sick, she really doesn't like that. And, oh my God. But I will talk about that. But I do kind of want to finish the thread that I was talking about. And if I start to have a bad day, then I'll just end the stream and I'll talk about this tomorrow. And hey, the other thing, I don't know if I'm gonna do it, because I usually don't feel like doing it at night. I sundown when night comes. But if I'm still having, on any of the days where they got the new Skinwalker Ranch episodes, what I might do is I might do a stream where you can get my reaction as I watch it, because I can watch it on the tablet here. And because I usually watch it more than once, and I was thinking today, I'm like, well, you know what? I've been feeling a little better. And because like when my foot was broke, I would say the first couple months, like up until a couple weeks ago, I was sleeping like, and if you look, there were a lot of days I wasn't doing streams, because some days I would even come in here, I would try to stream, and doing the walking, and it was bad enough when it was just healing. But when it had finally healed enough where I could start putting weight on it, and I could start working on my rehab stuff and shit, doctor gave me some ideas on what I needed to do, and they really recommended rehab, but I've been doing it. And according to the nurse practitioner, she's like, you looks like you're doing good, because I told her, I have enough trouble getting to the doctor's appointment on this, and I just really didn't want the hassle of going out to rehab. Well, she checked my mobility, and she goes, looks like you're doing pretty good. She goes, that's not bad. So I've just been keeping it up. Well, now I'm not falling asleep in the afternoon. Some days, last night I think I was up, but 2-3 nights before that I was falling asleep early. And then I would wake up like 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. I'd wake up way earlier than the cats needed me to. But I wasn't sleeping during the day. Well, then last night, I think I made it till, because I was falling asleep before 8 o'clock for a couple nights. Last night, I might be wrong. Maybe I fell asleep earlier, but I think I made it closer to 10 o'clock last night. Like somewhere between 9 and 10, I think is. But then I woke up like midnight, and it took me a couple hours to get back to sleep. And, oh, I know what I got to do. But yeah, I'll do that. But I just want to kind of finish my thought. Here's the thing, and again, this is just never gonna happen. It's just never gonna happen. But before my plant closed, and we were supposed to have a product, and I'm just gonna be completely honest here. We agreed to a local contract, and we were told that if we agreed to that local contract and we were the first ones that accepted our local contract, we'd have a guaranteed product until 2011. That's what we were told. They shut us down end of 2008 or sometime in 2009. They shut us down. They kept the plant in Arlington, Texas open, and they kept the plant in Mexico. Both of them made the same product we did. And yet, for reasons passing understanding, when they didn't keep their promise to us, they could have shut that. I mean, I really didn't care which. I didn't want to lose my job. I didn't want to have to move anywhere. And, my union had problems. I ain't going to lie. It had problems. There was a good old boy network here, but I seriously don't think anybody would. I don't think I would have had to worry that I might have been drugged or poisoned because I was complaining that things weren't being done right. I think they'd have just ignored it like they did for the most part. But down there, I honestly think that's what happened. I reported it to the FBI. I don't know if it did any fucking good or not because I probably didn't give them enough evidence to act on it. And there was talk that you had there were certain people that could get perks for people in management, like if somebody got caught speeding or if they were caught drinking, they could get them out of the tickets. And those people were given special treatment. They were, basically they were allowed to work overtime that wasn't needed and all this. They screw me. I get a grievance settled because they screwed me out of overtime. But yet, if you can get management out of a drunk driving ticket, you can pretty much work all the whether you need it or not. You work all the overtime you want. And but that's the shit. And I don't know if it's that's what I heard, that there was. And there was a thing where we were out at the bar the one night. And again, I don't know if any of this is true. I just know what people told me. But we were out at the bar the one night after work, and this is after my DWI, so I wasn't drinking at all. And somebody made a comment, and I go, hey, if I go out somewhere and somebody's a designated driver, I will get as shit-faced as I want. But I got one drunk driving ticket. I am not going to touch a fucking drink if I go anywhere near a car ever again. If I'm going to drink, I'm going to do it at home. I haven't started hiding liquor bottles yet. But if I'm going to drink, I'm going to do it at home. And, to be honest with you, after what happened, the shit that happened with my stomach when that stuff was going on, I don't generally drink anymore because I tried doing it after I lost my gallbladder, and it upset my stomach. I don't know what it is, but my stomach would feel bad until I pooped out the alcohol. As soon as I got it out of my intestines, then I was okay. But until then, I was miserable. It was just not good. But what happened was, and this was before the bankruptcy. There was there was this thing I think they used to call them buyouts. And I know my dad retired after he'd worked like 40 years, and I think it was 44 years and a quarter. He was every time he'd talk about it, he was real big on that quarter of a year or something like that. I don't know why. There was a reason for it, but I honestly can't tell you what it is off the top of my head. Um, and that's not a memory thing. That was one of those things where pretty much every time he brought it up, if I wanted to know what he was talking about, I had to ask him because it wasn't something I cared enough about to remember. But there was a reason for it, and I don't understand it. Fuck. And well, anyways, I'm gonna go cut down some more trees somewhere. But he didn't retire when he did because every year he always would think about it when the contract came out, and every now and then GM would offer what the workers, and I don't know what GM called it. I don't know what the world would call it, but the workers, the union, the rank and file, they always called it a buyout. And if they would offer a good buyout, he'd have probably retired. You got to think he started when he was 18, so he could have retired at 48, and he felt that was too young to retire. And so he kept working, and there were a lot of people that felt the way he did. They wanted to retire, they were willing to retire, but they figured, well, why retire this year? Because most of them had pretty good jobs. Anyways, why would I want to retire this year and then find out they're going to offer you $50,000 to retire next year, next contract? And so and again, if they'd offered a good buyout when he had 35 or 40 years, and he might have taken it, but he basically worked it until he worked it. And he didn't really, but they offered a buyout, and this would have been again before the bankruptcy. And here's what, and I can't remember the actual fact. Like I said, I've really not been haven't been feeling great for going on 4 or 5 days now. And like today, I'm definitely feeling better than the last couple days, but I'm still feeling it. And part of it, I was feeling better this morning, and then with the bullshit that happened, and with me getting up and doing my walking and other stuff, it's taken a toll on me. Go ahead, you trouble. Go ahead. Yeah, you can use the potty. Do you want to go on the porch? The male cat, um, the female cat does not like him using the litter box. Hey, hang on. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go see if he wants to go out on the porch because I don't. If he needs to go potty, he comes in and he looks at the potties. And you heard me. I told him to use it. Well, then he walks out chatting with me. So I'm gonna go see if he wants out on the porch. I'll be back as quick as I can. Trouble, would you like to go out on the back porch? Trouble, would you like to go out on the back porch? Come here, Trouble. Trouble. You want to go out on the porch? Trouble, I can open the porch door for you if you want to go out. Come here, Trouble. Come on, Trouble. You can go out and use the potty on the porch. I'm not going to stand here all day, but if you want to go out on the porch, I got the door open right now. Okay, I'll try to remember to have Jesse let you out when he gets home. Yeah, I'll try to have Jesse let you out when he gets home. You please be a good boy. Okay, I'm back. But there was a thing where if I might be wrong and I can't remember what it was, but if I'm remembering it right, if you had at least 30 years in, I might be wrong, but I think, and I can't remember what the circumstance were. It might have been depending on how old you were or something like that. But if you had at least 30 years in, there was either one payment you could get, or depending on your age, you could get two payments. I think it was, and don't quote me on this. I might be wrong. I want to be clear. But I think in one case you could get $140,000, and in the other one you could get 70,000. And I'm not 100% sure. It might have been like that might have been for people that couldn't retire. And I can't remember, but there was one thing where you could get like I think 140,000, and there was another one you could get like 70. And our union I thought was pretty good because they let people know. They go, hey, you might think that that's a lot of money, but when it's gone, it's gone. But I'm pretty sure there was a payment for people that had at least 30 years in and were over a certain age. And I think it was different than the people that had 30 years and were under a certain age, but I could be wrong. I might not be remembering that right. And then, you would retire. You'd get your full pension of 30 years or 30 plus years. And that was in the contract. Like when you retired, you got so much for every year of service. And it was spelled out in there. Well, if you had 40 years, you got X amount, X times 40. And if you had 35 years and you got every month, you got X times 35. And there was a thing they did where if you had at least 10 years of service, and I didn't qualify for this. I didn't have 10 and I wasn't old enough. The second one I might have qualified for on the time, but I don't think I had 10 years until I ended up in Indiana or after the layoff. But if you had at least 10 years of work and you were at least 50 years old, what happened was you would get a partial retirement. So instead of X times 30, you would get X times 10 or X times 15 or 20. And there were people that took that. So they got a partial pension. And then if they wanted to, they go work part-time or go get another job or start a business, whatever. And normally what I would do, but I don't want to do it while I'm here, because you guys, I'm gonna try and stay a little busy while I'm talking here. Well, that's what they did, and this was before the bankruptcy, and this was company wide. This was not just our plant. This was company wide, and what they wanted to do is they wanted to get rid of some of these dinosaurs. They wanted them to take the buyout. They wanted to get them out of there, and then they wanted like the younger people, because there was a lot of stuff they were doing, and like I experienced some of it down in Indiana. They wanted the team leaders to start doing more computer stuff, and a lot of these older people, because of dementia or what else. My dad had that. I don't know if he had it while he was working, but he had it after he retired. And like we had a guy like that down in Indiana. He pretty much anytime they needed him to do something, he had to jot it down. And because he was one of the ones that I think he had done my job in inspection before I got it over on the end of the line. And he pretty much had to write everything down because he wouldn't remember it. And that's what somebody said. They go, look, we don't know for sure, but he goes, the guy goes, I'm pretty sure he's got Alzheimer's, and it just, it is what it is. It's horrible. I can tell you from my dad, it's fucking evil. It's absolutely fucking evil. But it is what it is. And but they did. They wanted the team leaders, and they wanted other people to start doing this computer work. They needed it, for them to actually compete with other automakers and other industries. It was something that had to be done. And I can tell you there was limited success of it down there. Like at my plant, they had put us through the training. Like we were one of the ones leading the. And this is another reason why we were supposed to keep our plant going until 2011, because we had agreed to a lot of this shit that they wanted in our local agreement. And it was stuff like, they basically wanted like line workers. If you needed to stop the line, you stop the line. But if there's a defect, you write it on the matrix, the paperwork on that follows the job. And when I got down there, I brought it up with a group leader, one of my bosses, and I go, well, yeah, but they should be writing that shit down. And she just looked at me and she goes, yeah, we're not there yet. And I go, what do you mean? I go, that's part of this. We did this up there. She goes, yeah, we're not asking people to write stuff. And I don't know if this is what it is, because she never really went into more detail on it. But I know that, and I think it was Toyota. I'm not even sure it was us. But there were some of the southern plants, and it was one of the reasons why Toyota didn't really want to build a plant in Alabama, because there were a lot of the plants that they had down there, and they could not put work written instructions on the job boards, because most of the people couldn't read that good. At least that's what was being reported. So when they put work instructions out for the various people, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Oh, come on. Did I fuck that up? 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. 2, 3, 4. Yep, I fucked it up. And but so there's that going on. But yeah, they offered this thing. 2, 3, 4. Oh, anyways, yeah, the one place I was at, we used to see this guy, at the bar. He was drunk. He was like blind, fall down drunk every time we saw him, which was pretty much every night I stopped. And I'm like, oh my God, because I had my I go, he's gonna get a fucking DWI, and they're like, oh no, he's not. He's the accountant that does the taxes for the police. They go, he's not, he's not getting a ticket. And what this guy did, he literally, like fucking just, he got a drink, sat there for a few minutes, and then when they weren't paying attention to him, he'd get in the car with his cup and just take off. And it's like, you gotta be fucking shitting me. And you gotta understand, like the one place, and I don't know if that was where GM was or not. I think it was Fort Wayne, but I'm not 100% sure. They had a cop that was, if I remember right, and if I am not, I apologize, but If I remember right, he was driving drunk, off duty, in his squad car, and he fucking ran somebody over and killed him. And I know what they would have done to me. I am relatively sure what would have happened to me because I know what they did to me when I got drunk and nobody got hurt. They basically threw me in jail for the same amount of the time as the guy who was a repeat offender and who was like a fucking repeat offender and wrecked his car and did damage, you know. But like for me, it's like, oh, we got to make an example out of you, But when it was a cop, they started talking about what a good guy he was, and I don't remember them asking me that when I was in trial. I really don't. And the worst part is, I was being judged. I was being judged by a judge that had to have an ankle bracelet, and this is what I found out again. This is what I was told. If they were lying, I apologize. But when I was in prison, or jail for my sentencing, for basically having to stay in there for the 2 weekends until my debt to Indiana was paid, they go, "Oh yeah, he's a drunk. He's got." They were telling me that he had to take a breathalyzer before court, and he had an ankle monitor on. And so, like, I can tell you could see it in his eyes. In my opinion, everybody that came before him was a drunk just like him, and you could just see it. And so it is what it is. But that was going on down there, the cops, and so like when I witnessed that. I witnessed this guy getting into that car with a fucking drunk. He could barely fucking walk, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna get a drunk driving. They go, oh no, he does the taxes for the cops. They'll just take him home if he fucks anything up. It's just a matter of time until that fucking piece of shit fucking hurt, as bad as he was. It's just a matter of time until he fucks some people up, And I don't know. But anyways, to get back onto this, they when they did that bankruptcy, so let me go through the salient details, make sure I got it. There was a payout for people that had 30 years or more, a buyout, early retirement. And if there were people that had 10 years of service and were at least 50 years old, they could take a partial retirement. So like if they had 15 years, they'd get 15 years worth of pension, not 30. And then there was another thing where if you couldn't take the retirement, I think I might be wrong, but I think this might be what it is. It was either if you had so many years, or if you had so many years, or if you had so many years, or you could either get $70,000 or $140,000, and that was the thing they did. And again, they were just trying to get people out of there. They wanted to get in people that didn't know their union rights, that they could push around, and that whether you like it or not, that's what was going on. And I don't think it worked out for them, but that was what they were hoping. And we had a thing too where I ain't gonna get into that, not for this, because I want to get onto the UFO stuff. But no. Well, then when that bankruptcy came up, the Congress, and I don't know if it was the Republicans or not, and I can't think of the guy's name, but he was one of these douchebag conservatives that wore those bow ties. And they brought him in, and oh boy, he was gonna fucking school the UAW, and he was gonna school the auto companies. And in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure I was right on this, he wanted to go off on them for that. And I can't remember how he phrased it. And I got to be honest, I really don't care. If they broke the law, I would be happy to see them go to jail, but I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations on it is so long ago that they can't get nailed. But I watched it on C-SPAN. I was watching when they brought the UAW and the auto execs in, or the auto execs lawyers in. I don't know which one you want. I don't know which one it was, but it was people representing the union, and it was people representing the big three auto companies. And they brought him in, and he was asking them all these questions, and they had to answer. And then he didn't call it a buyout. He didn't call it an early retirement, as I recall. My opinion, they knew exactly what he was talking about. Because when he asked them about it, the people from the union side were at one table, and they kind of glanced over, like their lead guy kind of glanced over at the management representatives. Because here's the thing, if either side had said, well, I don't know what it is, and the other one goes, oh, you know too what it is. This is exactly what it is. Well, then they'd be nailed for contempt of Congress or perjury or whatever the hell you want to call it, right? And so what happened was one of them, and I might be wrong, I'm going from memory, and this was like, God, probably 10 or more years ago. Well, one of them looked at the other one and goes, I'm not sure what he's asking about. Do you have any idea what he's asking about? And the other side bid on it. They go, no, I have no idea what he's talking about. And they go, could you elaborate? We really don't know what you're talking about on this. And he ended up looking like a fucking idiot. And I don't know if that was his first day or his second day or his third day, but it was his last day. And I think the guy they brought in is called Steve Ratner. You see him every now and then on MSNBC and Morning Joe. He was the one that replaced him, but they flushed that guy like a big fucking stinky turd. And he clearly hadn't done his homework properly. And nothing here. Okay. And but what they were talking about was that buyout thing. Because he wanted to make a big deal of, well, you guys spent all this money to let people out early, so people would you paid people to retire, and they had their 30 years in, and that's what he wanted to do. I guarantee you, that's what he wanted to do. And then for the people that didn't really earn a pension yet, they gave them a pension. They let them go with 10 years or let them go with 15, and then plus the people that didn't want to work there. You gave them 70 grand or you gave them 140 grand. Why should we bail you out? The total. But, here's the thing, and I want to be completely honest on this. When you, I'm going to use up some of this. Oh, shit. Oh, here we go. When you had those management people just completely fuck things up. And I think it was either the banking thing or it might have been the Enron thing. It was one of those two times. There were people that were saying, hey, you can't give these guys the money. And then you had conservatives going, well, if we don't pay them that much, we won't be able to retain them. And the Democrats were like, they just bankrupted an entire sector. We want them to go. They shouldn't be getting this. They shouldn't be running these places. And you take a look at Disney now, that one guy, I think it's Iger, he came back. He turned it over to somebody, and he's had to come back because that other guy kind of ran it. But this thing, they get this high pay for these fuckers, and they're not worth it. And there's a thing, it was an economics professor, and he made the comment, because if you go back, and I just recently looked this up, if you go back to something like the 60s, and I think if you go back to World War II, it's different, but if it's less, But if you go back to like I think the 60s, I think what I had just looked up, it basically said that if back in the 60s, the average CEO made something like 15 times what the average or the lowest paid worker made in his company. That was the norm. Well, now you got these guys, they're getting like 400 times. And if you ever watch one of those undercover boss ones, most of those bosses can't, not all of them, but a lot of those bosses can't do the fucking job. They literally can't, like, and he seemed like a really nice guy. But you take that guy that was running Hooters, all they wanted him to do was run a two-wheeler and fucking stock shelves. And now granted, the boss was an asshole. And I think, I don't know if they fired him. They probably should have. But, that boss was like, oh my God, do I got to get one of them girls back here to show you how you're a grown-ass man? You should be, I mean, he was just fucking with that guy. But the guy couldn't fucking do simple work. And that's, I'm sorry, that's a legitimate thing. And, but when the Republicans, when it comes to CEOs, like you take like the bankruptcy of GM and that, when you had all those people that fucked things up, the companies were going under and all that other bullshit, Republicans, they treated those CEOs, contracts, those golden parachutes, they treated them like they were fucking chiseled on stone tablets and brought down from the mountain by fucking Moses himself. But when GM went bankrupt, fuck, our shit was supposed to be drawn on paper with fucking crayon. And that was just the way it was. And it's like, look, a contract is a contract. And if our contract isn't worth a shit, well, then their contract shouldn't be worth a shit. But that's a Republican thing, and it's not right. It's literally not right. But that was the thing, though. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if this rises to the level of contempt of Congress. But those fucking people, they knew damn well what he was talking about. And I think on some level, even if he fucked up the question, if you knew what he was talking about, I'm sorry, you should have been responsible for answering that. But they weren't. And but that was just, and I just wanted to get that off my chest because I was thinking about that today too. But fucking A, man. Well, anyways, let's get on to the UFOs, and then I'll be in a better mood. Okay, Senator Gillibrand and Mark Rubio, and this was a couple weeks ago. Need to Know, I think, was the first one I saw that was talking about this, and they kind of made a comment on how your mainstream news, your CNNs, your MSNBCs, they've been kind of silent on this. They really have. And the one thing I want to mention is MSNBC, and I don't know if this was a station thing or if it was the show, but that Ari Melber, he would bring on that Neil deGrasse Tyson. And the first time he did it, I reached out to him on Twitter and I go, hey, it was a show thing, not his personal one. And I go, you bring Neil deGrasse Tyson on. I go, I don't know why you bring him on. He's not an expert on this. I go, I don't think you can honestly say he knows anything about this. And I go, he's like an astrophysicist. I go, if you want to know, like if you want to talk to him about the moon, the sun, stars going supernova, I go, he's your guy. And I go, but he's not really a propulsion expert. He's not a theoretical physicist. I go, when you're talking about this, you would need somebody, and I go, there really isn't anybody good, but I go, you would need somebody that is on the cutting edge of what we know is possible. Because, I think it was Arthur C. Clarke who said that any superior advanced technology will appear just like magic to primitives. And that's what we're talking about. The military And now we've got some congressmen that have seen the videos, and they're saying, look, these things are just out of this world. Like this. I'm gonna bring. I think I've mentioned this before. If I didn't, I should have. But there's this one congressman. They go, well, how are you so sure that these things don't belong to Russia or China? And he goes, look, I've seen the classified videos. And he goes, if Putin had one of these things, he would have landed it on the White House lawn, came out bare-chested, and wrestled the president to the ground. He goes, he's just got too much of an ego. And he goes, if China had these things, he goes, if these were from China, he goes, they'd be stomping on us right now. They'd own Taiwan. They'd be over here telling us what to do. It is what it is. He goes, I am positive these things are not Russia or China. They're just too advanced. He goes, they're just absolutely too advanced. And so that's what we got going on. And different people have said, yeah, the real news is not, it's the smaller ones or the internet stuff. And they're like, look, you've got military coming forward. You've got intelligence people coming forward. You got Congress coming forward and telling you there's something to this. They go, I think it's high past time that the news should be treating this like a real fucking story, and I don't disagree with them on that. I literally don't disagree with them on that. And so they did this language, and according to the Need to Know guys, mostly Ross Coulthart, he's an Australian journalist, very well respected. He's got awards for his journalism. He has worked with 60 Minutes. He did a UFO thing for one of the Australian news channels. It's either Channel 2 or Channel 6 or something like that. And he did they paid him to do a UFO thing, and I gotta tell you, it kind of rivaled the one that J.J. Abrams had done for Showtime. It wasn't as good, but I would say it was pretty close. And he talked about it. He went over, and I'd have to watch it and give you specifics, but when I watched it, I was actually pretty impressed with it. And he said that the language was locked, and then the way he talked about it, it would require the government and private sector to fully brief Congress. And the wording they used was any non-terrestrial technology, craft, metamaterials. They worded it in a way that pretty much anything that they knew not to be of earthly origin or human origin. And then it added anything that you can't identify its origin. It was worded in a way that they were going to have to come forward with everything. And then they basically said that anybody who didn't do it, you had so many months to give like the cliff notes to Congress. And then after that, you had like a total of 6 months. Like you had a couple months to give them the overview, like, hey, here we got this. Kind of like your teachers would give you an overview of like the upcoming test. And it was enough for you to kind of get an idea what was going to be on the test. And then they basically said that you have 6 months from the minute this comes in to fully brief us. That's the detailed thing. So like the teacher gives you your cliff notes, and then you give your teacher your final report, where you're giving them the who, the what, the how, the why. And they said that anybody that did not comply in the private sector would lose any money they were receiving, grants, that kind of thing, and any contracts they were receiving. So this looked like a really good, and again, it wasn't coming to us. They had to brief Congress. And I think there were some stipulations on what, but like pretty much Congress had to be read in on everything. End of discussion, that's it. And I'm like, when he read that, I'm like, oh my God, this is really good, And then over this past weekend, Chuck Schumer said that he was going to introduce language and that theirs was going into an upcoming intelligence bill. And the one that Schumer wants to put in was going to go into this, the one that the House just passed, the defense bill. And I was worried because, again, he basically, the cliff notes of it was that it was going to require declassification of government documents. And my thing on that is, okay, then basically it's not going to touch the private sector. It's not going to touch the military contractors, the aerospace developers, and they can keep playing the game they got now where they shift everything over to them guys, and then they don't have to respond to Congress. They don't have to respond to FOIA requests and whatnot. And so I reached out to him. I said, hey, you know, when he's not busy, as soon as he's got time, if you could have Ross get the language, dig into it like he did the ones from Gillibrand's group. And I mentioned, I go, I am just worried that they're going to be using this to hide things from us like they are now. Well, he did that, and I believe it was yesterday. And again, he went into a lot of detail. I can't do that. Go look up the video. Go look up everything he said about Christian Gillibrand's amendment for the Intelligence Committee. Go look up what he said about this because I can't do it justice. But the thing I will say is he mentioned some kind of a law that covered the Energy Committee. It's like the one that covers like nuclear power plants and stuff like that. And there was another law that he mentioned, and he specifically said that the amendment that was going to be offered up specifically stated that we are well aware that there has been a flawed misinterpretation of these two laws, and it has been used to overclassify things that should not be classified. And they go, so immediately we need you to stick to the letter of the law and immediately declassify the stuff that has been erroneously classified. It also stated that it was going to, it's kind of like what they just did with the JFK documents. It's going to empower the president to create a staff or a committee, a working group, and they will go over all of this stuff and determine what needs to be classified, the schedule for it. And that right there gives me pause because there's a lot of stuff that is not going to be released from the Kennedy days. There's some stuff it was a good step, but they were talking about how, well, you know, this is the final thing. And so that's another thing. And then there was the other thing he mentioned is it basically stated, and he thinks, because he's basically got a background as a lawyer. He was trained as a lawyer before he became a journalist. And he said that he thinks this is going to have to get reworked. But the language as it is right now, and you could see him flipping through it. He was going through the language for the podcast. He's kind of freshening up and going through like what it was saying. But any of this stuff that has been given to like Lockheed Martin, EG&G, and so on, immediately, like anything that they had not, and he goes, I am pretty sure they're going to give them time, but anything that the private industries and maybe the government work groups, anything as of a certain time has not been fully disclosed would be seized by federal authorities. It would be taken away from them. And he thinks that they might need to amend that a little bit because he said, if these guys were given this stuff even 40 or 50 years ago, if they were given this stuff by the government, he goes, you might be able to defend that. But he goes, this seems like if you have UFO groups that have picked up, like I'm thinking of the Roswell stone and some of the other stuff, like it's a stone that they found allegedly near Roswell, New Mexico. It's a stone. It's not metallic, but yet it has a metallic, metallic features to it. Like it can push a magnet, it can attract a magnet, I think. Uh, it's weird. They've covered it on H. I don't even know if it's real or not, but it's like, they've done that. And he said, some of this stuff, they've found it themselves. So he said, I don't know how they would be able to go in and just steal that stuff. But that's what he was talking about. And then the other thing that he mentioned, and I know I'm forgetting something. There was something I want to tell you, and I'm kind of forgetting it now. But one of the things he mentioned was, there was another thing where uh, everything UFO related, it sounded like would have to be, and it was worded in a way, and I might be getting this wrong, but if I'm understanding it right, the way it was worded, all UFO documents would basically come under one authority. So you wouldn't have this thing where, if somebody orders something up, or if you do a Freedom of Information request, if you go to the Navy and you do a Freedom of Information request, well, even if they're Navy documents, if they're currently in the possession of the CIA, they're like, "Oh, we checked all our records. We don't have anything for you." Or the Navy might have to turn you stuff over, but you didn't ask for the CIA stuff, and since the CIA is a different original classifying authority, they don't have to respond to that FOIA request. It sounded, and that's the way I was taking it, and I might be wrong. Again, go watch the video, check it out for yourself. But it sounded like all of that stuff was going to have to come under one house, and then Freedom of Information requests could all go there. And it would cover everything the government has. It would cover everything that they know about in private sector. There'd be one spot where you could go, is the way I was taking it. And they also mentioned that it is pretty clear, it is factually proven that the FOIA request system has failed to do what it was intended to do, to be like a sunshine law for the American people. And they go, we need to fix this. And then the other thing that was mentioned, they asked him about, and I believe it's going to be on the 26th, which might be next week. The House is going to have a hearing on the UFO stuff. And one of the guys, Tim Burchard or something, he's a House representative. He might be the only one because Tennessee's kind of small, but he's a House representative from Tennessee. And he basically said that we're going to do our level best to not talk about who's coming in, because he goes, I don't know if we could prove it in a court of law, but he goes, we are positive that the Pentagon and others have been intimidating witnesses to not talk to us, to refuse to come in. And he goes, and if these people back out, if they don't, we're going to subpoena their ass, and if we have to, we'll drag them in here. But he goes, we're going to get them in here, we're going to ask them these questions, and we're going to basically expect them to tell us the truth. And he goes, we'll see what happens. But he goes, we're going to do our level best to keep their names secret. And then when they come in, everything will be on the record. Everything will be on video. The American people will get to know exactly what's going on. They'll know what we know, like right after we know it. And he basically said that. Well, when he goes, yeah, and he talked, but he goes, well, yeah, they're really trying to keep it tight. He goes, I think they're going to have like maybe 3 people in. And he goes, I think they are going to have that Grouch or whatever. He's that, Ross Coulthart did an interview with this guy for News Nation. He thinks he's going to be there. And this was the thing he said that freaked me out. He goes, if he is asked and he has to respond to it, that intelligence whistleblower is going to go on the record. He goes, I have been assured of this. If he is asked, he is going to go on the record and let them know that people have been killed to keep the UFO thing secret. And he goes, he will go on the record. He will say, yes, that's true. And he goes, I think he is going to tell them, who died, why they were killed, and to the best of his ability, he's going to give them the best information he has on who did it. And he said, he goes, now here's the thing. He goes, I can tell you for a fact that there have been laws broken. There have been people that should be charged because they kept this secret. And he said, putting them in jail because they kept this secret, and they should have been reporting it to the Pentagon, or they should have been reporting it to the president, or they should have been reporting it to Congress. He goes, I don't know that that does any good. And he goes, it would be a lot of people. But he said, there have been harmful crimes that I can tell you for a fact have been committed. So Ross, I hate to say this, but it's entirely possible that he's going to vanish, you know. And he's basically saying that Grouch might vanish. I'm being completely honest. It's at least in the realm of possibility. But he said, you know, those people should actually absolutely be held accountable. And he said, so I don't know what's going to happen, but he goes, I am really, you know, him and his co-host were just really upbeat during the podcast. And then the other guy, Zabel, he goes, you know, he looked like he was damn near going to break out crying. He was so happy, you know, about this. And he goes, you know, and he goes, the only thing I'm thinking of is there's got to be people at maybe you know, these contractors like Lockheed Martin, EG&G, you know, I think he rattled off a couple. He goes, it's possible that they're sitting there and they are looking over the classified documents they have, the documents they have on the UFOs, and they're just looking at them, and they're right in front of the shredder, and they're looking at the documents, they're looking at the shredder, and all he said was, he goes, with all the problems that we're seeing Trump go through right now, he goes, I would ask you to think about it, because he goes, if you hide evidence from the government, if you shred and destroy evidence from the document, he goes, you could very well be going through what Trump is going through, where you were looking at life in prison for doing it. So he goes, if you got that stuff, please do the right thing. Save it. Maybe voluntarily offer it up. Wait for them to come and get it. But he goes, I guess seriously, he goes, some of you guys, maybe, like Ross said, maybe they won't go to put you in jail for what you've done, you know, hiding stuff, being quiet, lying about stuff under oath. But he said, if you destroy that evidence, if you hide that evidence, they're going to find out. He goes, they've got enough whistleblowers coming through. He goes, you could end up spending the rest of your life in jail, where if you just act like Biden and Pence and others, and when this is signed into law, you just voluntarily give that stuff over or give copies of it over. He goes, they're probably not going to prosecute you. And then the thing that Ross Coulthard said, he goes, look, I got to tell you, he goes, I'm originally trained as a lawyer. And he goes, here's the thing. When you take these publicly traded companies, he goes, even if they're not criminally prosecuted, which a lot of them could be, in my opinion, from my understanding of the law. And because there was one company, and I can't remember what it was. It was something like Lockheed. If it wasn't Lockheed, it was another big, well-known company like that. And when they were asked, and I don't know if it was UFO related, it might have been when this disclosure thing started becoming big last year. They said that they have followed all the rules or policies or whatever they have to with their shareholders or their investors, so they're all covered. And the thing he said, he goes, well, here's the thing. He goes, I don't understand how that could be true if they have secret technology. Because he said, if you've got a guy who had, I think he used this as an example, but I might, again, it's whatever company he was talking about for the story. But he said, if you had Lockheed Martin, and I'm just using that as an example, I'm not sure it's the right one. Go watch the video. But if you have Lockheed Martin and they had this extremely valuable spaceship that was in a building somewhere, and they didn't tell their shareholders, and you had a shareholder that bought stock before they acquired it or before they were given it by the government, and they sold that stock not knowing that that extremely valuable thing was in the company's possession. He goes, that's fraud. He goes, that is absolute fraud. And he goes, I don't know how they're going to get around that, because he goes, there's a lot of this stuff they weren't even telling the Pentagon. They weren't even telling Congress. He goes, how could they have told their shareholders about this? He goes, it just doesn't make any sense. But the one thing he did say, and so again, I'm going to probably watch it. Maybe if I do that tonight where I live stream while I'm watching Skinwalker Ranch, I may do that for the meeting next week if I'm feeling good enough. I might be watching the meeting or that hearing if it's public, and I might be giving like my reaction while it's going on. But I gotta tell you, he made the comment that the committee that is going to hold this hearing next week, he is not sure that they have the required security clearances to really get into it that much. He rattled them off. It's like the select, and like he said, the intelligence committee couldn't even do this, but he goes, the select intelligence subcommittee could, and the permanent select intelligence committee in the House could. And he goes, maybe the Armed Services Committee or one of their subcommittees. He goes, they're the ones that have the security clearance to go into this. So he goes, the one we get next week just might not be that good. So take it with a grain of salt. But like at least one of the guys that's on there, he's real passionate about that Tim Burchett guy from Tennessee. He's real passionate about this, and that might be a good thing. But I hope they don't do anything that's going to violate the rules or security, because you don't want to give the government or the executive branch any reason to fucking come down on this. You want to make sure you're doing everything right and above board. And so far, that David Grouch, he has. Sounds like he could give master classes on people who want to come forward and talk about this stuff. So I don't know, but that's what I got for you today. And again, I've been getting people showing up. Sometimes it's just two people. The only thing I'll tell you is every time I stream, about a third of the time it'll tell me that I got like a new follower. Well, and again, this is the crappy equipment I'm using. I don't have my I'm not even going to say good. I don't have my better equipment to do this on. Well, every time I go in there, it just tells me I got 99 followers. And either I'm losing them as fast as they're coming in, or it's maxed out at 99 and it can't roll over. And this is all I can afford. It's the best I can do. Peace out. And I hope everybody, I do. If you guys are enjoying this, I will. And I got to tell you though, I did make a promise that if the powers that be let me win one of the big lotteries, I will quit doing this for the rest of the year. Because the one day I started talking about Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, and I was talking about the underground bases that they were talking about on the show. Well, it had been raining for like a couple hours. It had been raining all through the first stream I did. And as soon as I started talking about that, it started storming real bad. And almost immediately after I shut my stream off, the thundering was gone. So I waited a little bit. When the weather looked like it was going to hold, I just said, hey, if you guys let me win that big ass lottery, and there's two of them right now, there's Powerball and Mega Millions. I go, whether, I don't care if it's the government, I don't care if it's something out there. If you don't want me talking about this, you let me win one of those big lotteries, and I go, unless I forget, I go, I will quit doing this for the rest of the year. And I go, and if you don't want me to forget, just heal me. Especially if it's one of those non-human intelligence things, just heal me so that I'm doing okay. And I will be more than happy to quit talking about this. And then next year, all you gotta do is let me win the lottery again. I will take that as my sign that I should talk about movies or sci-fi or something else. But I mean, I'm being completely honest here. So if I do end up hitting one of those, I will not be talking about UFOs. I won't be talking about Skinwalker. I will keep my end of the bargain to the best of my ability. Um, but I don't think there's any danger of that. So I will be doing your UFO podcast or streams or whatever you want to call it because I enjoy talking about this stuff. And it's something I can do. I can kind of sit around and do this. Peace out, and I hope everybody has a great day.